Hey YouTube, just want to share a few gardening spiritual insights that I've gotten over the last few days and months of gardening. There's definitely been a lot of struggle. This is not a garden tour, by the way. I will probably do one maybe a little later this week. But anyways, today's Sabbath, and have a blessed Sabbath, everybody who happens to see this on Sabbath day that celebrates the Sabbath. And I hope that your day is going well, depending on when this comes out. The internet is a little slow in the middle of Nowhereville, New Brunswick, and the internet does take a while for things to upload, so this could be uploaded after Sabbath, but anyways, it is Sabbath right now. And I just wanted to share a couple of spiritual insights from the Bible based on seed time and harvest. So I was thinking about how Ecclesiastes chapter 3 talks about, it's a very popular verse 1, to everything there is a season. The part of gardening that was appealing to me was how things, when you plant them, there's going to always be a time for those things that you've planted to be uprooted. And when you're gardening and you're taking a lot of your time and energy to garden something, it's like, for example, these beans, they're really pretty to me. And from one seed, all these vines grew up, and we've got all these little pretty flowers, and out of the flowers is where the fruit grows, or the beans. So I've got some beans growing there. You can see them coming along. And at some point, when the weather starts to get colder and not much is going to be harvested from these vines, I'm going to have to pull it out. And even though it's part of life, sowing and reaping, or seed time and harvest, it is a bit of a sadness to it because of the fact that I'm going to be uprooting this beautiful vine. It's not going to grow anymore, so I'll get over it, but it is a bit of a sad thing. It got me thinking, this is exactly why God uses so many relatable situations in life to speak the parables about the kingdom of heaven. And one of those parables reminded me of my struggles with my sunflowers. So I have sunflowers, and I've never grown sunflowers before. So I was pretty excited at the fact that they were actually even sprouting. I've got a few that are just starting to grow again, so I'll show you what they started out like. These are some newer seedlings that I've planted recently, and so these are tiny. If you can see to the ground, from the ground up, they're probably about 2 inches, maybe about 3 inches now at this point. Some of them are even less than that, like 1 inch or so off the ground. But they started off like this and grew to these. Before they actually started blooming, I had an incident that happened. They were growing day by day by day, and this was more in the form of a ball. And you could tell it was more like this. As the days were growing, this ball was getting bigger and bigger. And this was my biggest plant right here. It was about as tall as it is right now. But what happened is, as you can see right now, there's nothing here. And that's because as the ball on it got bigger and bigger and bigger, it was about 1 day off from fully blooming. And I came out, and this is what I found. A whole bunch of leaves eaten up, and the entire head gone. And that was deer. Deer came and ate the head of my sunflower off. And that was the only one that was at that point that was getting ready to bloom. So I was pretty heartbroken over it, because again, I've never planted sunflower seeds before, and it was like 1 day away from blooming. And so, eventually I got over it, kept watering these ones, and eventually ended up with 1, 2, 3, and 1 little baby one. So I ended up with 4 more. I didn't know what was going to happen at the time, but it really did remind me of the parable, which I will read. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, a sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places, where they had not much earth, and forthwith they sprung up, because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But other fell into good ground, and brought forth some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone heareth the word of the kingdom, and understandeth it not, then cometh the wicked one, and catcheth away that which was sown in his heart. This is he which received seed by the wayside. But he that received the seed into stony places, the same is he that heareth the word, and anon with joy receiveth it. Yet hath he not root in himself, but dureth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution ariseth because of the word, by and by he is offended. He also that received seed among the thorns is he that heareth the word, and the care of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and he becometh unfruitful. But he that received seed into the good ground is he that heareth the word, and understandeth it, which also beareth fruit, and bringeth forth some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. And so it got me thinking that we really are to God the same way that these sunflowers are to me, in a way. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. And when you're planting these seeds, I mean, I'm the same person. I planted all of these seeds at the exact same time. You can see that some of them have different heights, like especially this one, it's super small. So what happened here is you've got the growth is different in all of them. You've got outside experiences caused this plant to have its whole head eaten off in the prime of its life. And this one, it's going to produce, you can see it's starting to, can't really see, but it's getting to the place where it's starting to develop that seed structure for sunflower seeds. So I'm hoping for the best that these will actually develop into not just sunflowers, but that they will all have sunflower seeds that I can use for eating or for sowing next year. But in any case, the spiritual insight to me was like, you can plant all these seeds the same way God plants people in the earth, and the word of God can be accepted by some, and there's many things that can take it away. The distractions that the parable speaks of, the enemy sending distractions from outside sources, or even our own internal motivations to follow the word of God, and not just accept it, but to actually follow it. And from that decision of following it to longevity, because it's not a race for the swift. Life has the rat race, and we have God's race. The rat race is what the world does. God's race is longevity, endurance until the end. And so these sunflowers gave me that little bit of a spiritual insight. I want to share it with you, just to encourage you to play the long game when it comes to the race of life. Don't really engage with the rat race, but engage with the race that is slow and steady. And so there's one other parable within chapter, these are both out of Matthew chapter 13. And there's another one I wanted to share. Okay, so the sunflowers' spiritual insight was based on the parable of the rocky soil, and then all the different variations of the soil, all the way till it was planted in good ground and brought forth seed. The other parable that is very popular is related to the parable of the seed and the sower. The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, Then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servants said unto him, Will thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. Then Christ sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, the good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. And therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire. So shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. This parable had me really relating to the peas. Or the peas had me relating to the parable, I should say. So I've got all these peas growing in the garden. It's got a good mix of weeds here. I did pull out some weeds. Like there was a patch here that was almost entirely weeds, so I got rid of those. But within my patch here of peas, there are a good amount of weeds all throughout. And what was happening was, as I started to pull the weeds, I was starting to weed this area, but what was happening is that the peas root system, it's not super deep. So I've got, like here, you can see these are dead peas, and the reason they're dead is my fault, because what happened was I tried to pull out weeds around it, and I pulled up accidentally the actual peas alongside with the weeds, and that was happening over and over again. So I've lost quite a few peas from that, and the reason is because the peas root system isn't super deep. Like it has a good enough root system, but it's not deep enough. So when I pulled up the deeper root of the weed, it came up along with it. They're just basically intertwined with each other. And this was like a big eye-opener when it comes to spiritual things. When you think of the sower who came along and sowed his wheat, and then the enemy came along and sowed the tares alongside it, in his wisdom he said, don't pull up. When it came to the people that were coming to harvest, he told them, no, don't pull it up. Don't go ahead and pull up the tares now. Just let them grow together. And at the end of the age, or at the end of the harvest season, we'll pull it up. We'll take the tares, and they'll be going we'll burn those up, and we will take the wheat for harvest. So it's just very interesting to me, because the same thing as what I'm going to have to do with these peas is what the Bible speaks of. Keeping these peas until the end of the season, when I think that they've all grown fully. I will then just pull up the entire section and then separate the weeds from the peas, and then just pull the pods off individually after the fact. So what's the insight here? First of all, it's possible for people who are posing as believers to be entwined with people who actually are believers. So your support system, the people that you're around, whether they are believers or aren't believers, but in this case, if they are believers, you really do not know about people. You really don't. At the end of the day, all you can do is not hold too much bias, because in the case of the wheat and the tares are very similar in looks to wheat. So you would not really know, unless you have a trained eye, in knowing whether a wheat is really wheat when it's growing beside tares. So counterfeits are among us, and God's not really too concerned about the counterfeits. corrupting his children, because if you are his child, you're going to stay his child until the very end. So it's not really a need to be too concerned with counterfeit people, because at the end of the age, counterfeit people will be weeded out. And if you are truly God's child, you are going to hold on to the very end and will not be corrupted. And so these are just a couple of insights that kind of sprung off of my gardening. And again, both of them, when it comes to God, he really does have a structure. You know, if people act like you can't know God, he's unknowable, he has no structure. God is very structured, and he has an order to things. And God operates in the process of time. That was one of actually the biggest things that came to my mind at the beginning of my little revelation today, is that he works in time. And that's where I was reading Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season, seed time and harvest time. And so in time, when you walk the walk of longevity, you will see God's results in your life. And that's in the micro, and that is in the macro as well. If you walk the walk with the Most High from day to day, you will see the results in your life. And you don't need to worry about what other people are doing, how they're doing it. It really doesn't matter whether it's somebody who is another believer or isn't a believer. It really doesn't matter. If you walk God's walk, if you walk his path, if you walk his instructions and follow them out to the best of your ability, he will move in time, because he is a God of order and he is a God of time. And that's why, you know, we can't exactly pinpoint when is the end of the age. But the end of the age will come, because the Most High walks in time. Of course, he transcends space and time as we know it. But when it comes to us mere mortals, he will work in seasons of time. And just the way that you can guarantee a seed time and a harvest, and that the seasons will come and the seasons will go, you can guarantee that if you walk with God in the right season, he will move however he needs to move in your life. I'm not going to say he's going to give you $1 million, because that's just stupid talk for people who are in this prosperity gospel stuff. But he's not outside of being able to do that. Not everybody's going to be a millionaire. So, and money really is not what you need in these last days. What you need is wisdom and longevity, perseverance. So he's going to move on your behalf, whatever that may be. And however, how insurmountable it seems, God can do that. The Most High is able to do these things in our life if we just wait on his timing, because everything, literally everything, is about timing. And that was my biggest takeaway about a garden. If I go ahead and try and plant some peas in November, nothing's going to happen, because there is a time and a season for everything, including planting peas. And that's the same way he works in our lives. And on a side note, when I was doing my studies, I did notice that there is also, within chapter 13 of Matthew, there is also the parable of the mustard seed. Very popular, very famous. And when I was Googling something about it, I saw there's a lot of naysayers out there that wanted to make it look like the Bible doesn't know what it's talking about, because in the mustard seed, I will read the parable.
Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like to a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is the greatest among herbs, and becometh a tree, so that the birds of the air come and lodge in the branches thereof.
In that parable, it does say Christ references the mustard seed as a tree. And in the Google comments, it was like, oh no, there's no such thing, it's not a tree. Very condescending toward the word. And I just wanted to say as a side note here, if anything seems to contradict with the word of the Most High God, the problem is not the Most High God. The problem is you or me. If we don't have an understanding, it's nothing to do with the word. It's actually to do with our understanding. Because if you think of it as a human being looking down at a caterpillar, and the caterpillar is going the wrong direction, I could talk to it, and unless it's a cartoon, the caterpillar is not going to turn around and say, hey, thanks for the instructions. The caterpillar is going to be completely clueless and keep walking. But if I go down and I put my hand on top of the caterpillar and steer it to the direction that it should be going, then it's going to go in the way it should go. And that's a lot like what Christ did, what the Most High did through Christ. He sent him to come down and instruct us in the right ways, because clearly it wasn't working so well with the Most High in heaven. And so as I'm talking about this, I'm realizing that we are to the caterpillar as the Most High is to us. So there are some things that when you're looking at the Word of God, you may or may not understand it. You need to pray and ask the Most High, because He is the author. Yes, He used men to write the Word, but He is the inspiration. His Spirit is the inspiration for the Word. So you need to look to Him to show you if you're stuck on something. But the problem is never with the Most High. And on the other end of things, most of the time when it comes to the things in the Word that don't seem to line up at first, it's because we just need to take a step back and look at the translation. For me, I have always found that the Strong's Concordance has cleared up a ton of questions that I've had, because sometimes that word, when you look it up in the concordance, it gives a better explanation or multiple explanations for that particular word. And the other very helpful tool that I've used to get better understanding is the 1828 Webster's Dictionary. The dictionary is super helpful because when you look at the King James Bible, yes, it was 1611 that it first came out, but the one that we all read, if you read the King James, is been modified because the English language was even rougher. Like if somebody has trouble with the King James version right now, the 1611, go back and read that. You'll have fun, because the word, it's like the old English, right? So in 1881 was the very last modification of the KJV. The 1828 Webster Dictionary is much closer in time. So when you're talking about English of 1881, the 1828 dictionary is going to have a much better grasp on that English as compared to our modern day English. If you go to a Webster's Dictionary of 2024, the very same word could have a different meaning. And so just in reference to the mustard seed, people were saying that Christ was calling the mustard seed a tree, when actually, no, that's not exactly what was happening. That word becometh, that they're saying, they're kind of insinuating that he was literally saying that the mustard seed was a tree. But in the same sentence, he explains that the mustard seed is a herb. And he also goes on to explain that tree that becometh, so-called becomes a tree, what the purpose of that sentence is for. The purpose of the sentence is to say that herb will soon become so big that it can house birds, and birds will come and sit in its branches. And I've seen indeed bushes that have birds come and live and go hang out in there, and they're much smaller than 20 feet. A mustard seed plant can grow up to 20 feet. So yes, a mustard seed is an herb, and I'm sure Christ knew the difference between an herb, a bush, and a tree. So become in the 1828 dictionary can mean befit, and to befit something is to become appropriate for, or to be appropriate for something. So you can really just say that the mustard plant was appropriate as a tree in that sentence that people are just taking out of context and making it sound like Christ had no idea the difference between an herb and a tree. So that's just like one little example and off on a tangent, but I just wanted to share that. And anyways, I hope you are having an amazing Sabbath and that you have a wonderful rest of your day. God bless you, and I will see you in the next